Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video, we're just gonna hang out like besties. We're gonna bake together, we're gonna have a girl chat, kind of catch up on life together. It's kind of like you're spending the day with me, but not fully like a vlog, if that makes sense. So we're gonna start with baking cookies because one, who doesn't love baking cookies? And two, we are going over to my in-laws tonight, so I'm making cookies for dessert. So I thought I'd show you guys and bring you guys along. And then later on, we'll have a little chat and a life update. I know I've shared my cookie recipe with you guys before, but I know there's a lot of new friends around here and I thought I'd show you guys again. So to start, you're gonna need 1 stick of butter, 2 cups of light brown sugar, 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And then for the dry ingredients, you'll need 2.5 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of espresso grounds, and then you'll need about 1.5 cups of chocolate chips. So we're gonna start by preheating our oven to 350. So before we get into making the dough, I wanna tell you guys about my last baking adventure, which was making croissants. I made these over with you guys on my Instagram and it was so, oven's ready, and it was so much fun. So if you guys don't follow me over there, you definitely should. I did save it to my highlights, so if you want to see the recipe I used, how I made them, it is all over there. It took everything in me to not take a bite of that. So while the oven's preheating, we're gonna make our dough, and you guys know I love my KitchenAid. It's over there. I use it all the time, but for cookie dough, I actually prefer using a hand mixer. I've learned that I can really control the texture of the butter and the brown sugar, and that is really, really key to making a good fluffy cookie. So I'm gonna add the 1 stick of butter. The temperature of the butter is also key, so I would say 1.5 hours to 2 hours out of the fridge is perfect. This is the 2nd cup of lightly packed brown sugar. Now we mix it together. So this is the point where a lot of people stop, but I would say keep going. If you stop, it's totally fine, but I think going a little bit longer really gives it that beautiful whipped texture when you add the eggs, which is what makes it perfect. So I'm gonna keep going until I feel like the texture is just right, and I'll show you what that looks like. I would say this is a good texture. It might look the same to you. I feel like it's more of like a full mix together. So now I'm gonna add the 2 eggs, but 1 at a time. Mix again. Okay, at this point you should have a beautiful dough that almost looks like a frosting, like beautifully whipped, and that's how you know it is gonna be a good fluffy cookie. So now we're gonna add vanilla. You know, I say 2 teaspoons or whatever I said. I just eye it and I always add more because you can never have too much vanilla. So that's a good blob. Maybe a little more. So now we're gonna add all of the dry ingredients. So there's 2 cups of flour. I usually start with 2 and I'll add more if needed. About 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then 1 teaspoon of baking powder. These 2 ingredients are optional, but I like to add a dash of cinnamon. And then the key to this recipe is espresso powder. Coffee or any espresso really brings out the flavor of chocolate, which is why this goes great in chocolate chip cookies. But warning, if you're eating these at night, like just beware, you could get a little bit of caffeine in you. And then we'll just mix this all together. I definitely can tell that I need probably that other 1/2 cup of flour. So I would say that's pretty well mixed. So now is where we add chocolate chips. This is another really important step. So I prefer chunks, and I prefer to make the chunks out of a giant chocolate bar. So in this bowl, I've got mini chocolate chips, chocolate chunks, and big chocolate chips. So you can literally use whatever you want. The reason why I like using a chocolate bar is because it creates a ton of shavings from the chocolate, and I throw those in there too. And that's what makes these cookies just like next level, because you get little shards of chocolate in there. So if you don't have a chocolate bar, you can do this. This is what I did last time, is I threw some chocolate chips into a food processor to create like little tiny things of chocolate, and then I mixed them in there as well. I would say that is a pretty great cookie dough. So now we're gonna put them on a baking sheet. You can use a cookie scoop, whatever you want, and bake them. I always do like 9 minutes, check on them and see where they're at. So let's put these on a baking sheet and put them in the oven. This next step I almost forgot to do and to tell you guys, but it is so key, is to add a couple chocolate chips on top. I would prefer to do chocolate chunks, but I used them all because I didn't think about it. All right, let's put these babies in the oven. and now we wait. Okay, time to pull them out. Okay, these cookies are fresh out of the oven. They look delicious. A very important step that I almost forgot to tell you guys is to put sea salt on your cookies after they come out of the oven, and it just like enhances the flavor so much more. So now we'll let these cool and we'll bake the rest. Okay, our cookies are finished and cooling off, and they look amazing, and I hope that they're gonna be delicious. You guys need to tag me if you try these cookies because they're so good and so easy, and anybody, even if you don't bake, can make chocolate chip cookies because they're really hard to mess up. So now we can have our little quality time talk. I'm actually gonna make a latte before we start, just to set the mood, feel cozy, and actually give me some energy because I am slowly dwindling. So let's make a cup of coffee together. Okay, let's do this. So I'm really nervous to film this part of this video because I keep very strict boundaries with what I share on social media, and I don't know, I just like to keep a lot of my life private. So I feel nervous to talk to you guys about this because I'm just afraid I won't say the right things, or I won't, like, you know, I won't speak like eloquently enough or really have my thoughts together, but that is no reason at all to not do what I feel like the Lord is calling me to do, and really kind of stepping out in faith here because it's not something I want to do, but I do believe that this will be really beneficial to kind of tell you guys, I guess, my story, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and yeah. So starting with why I'm even sharing this with you guys, I have a lot of reasons why. The first one is that I saw people that I watch post this kind of video, and it almost gave me courage to be able to do it, and make me feel like I'm not alone was like a big thing. Like my friend Michelle, I know she posted about it, Jess posted about it, and it really does help you feel like, oh, I can do that, and it's not crazy, because it does feel like everybody is on the pill and it just seems like what everyone does. I really felt led to share this with you guys, just to encourage you. And I do also want to say that just because I do this, I'm not really encouraging anybody else to do this. By encourage you, I mean like just so if you are considering it, that you don't feel alone in that. Again, like, this is my story. There are medical reasons why I had to get off of it, but also reasons that I decided spiritually and with a ton of different other things. So this is my story. I'm not saying that you need to get off of it. Just take it for what it is, and then you can do whatever you want with the thoughts that you have. So before I start, I do want to ask you, please do not like comment or ask like if we're pregnant. I just feel like that's not, it's just rude anyway. Like, there's a difference between asking somebody, oh, when do you guys plan on having kids, or, oh, are you pregnant? I think it's just rude because you don't know what people are going through. You don't know if people are walking through infertility or any issues that they're having. Like, you just don't know, and I feel like you need to be really close to somebody to be able to ask that question. So you guys never really ask that question, but I just want to put that out there. Just because I'm getting off the pill doesn't mean that we are trying to get pregnant. We aren't trying to get pregnant right now. And that's not what this is about. So let's start with me getting on the pill. Me and Sam had talked about it and prayed about it. How do we want to use birth control? Meaning, like, how are we going to plan out our family? Do we want to just not use anything? Do we want to use this, that? There's so many things to consider. And so I knew whenever I went to go get my first pap smear done and to get on a form of birth control, I just wanted to be really informed by my doctor, because there's so much on the internet, so I didn't really look into things too much. I did know going into my first appointment that I did want to tell her things that I had convictions about. So for example, if I was going to be on a medicine, I didn't want it to be like have an abortive effect, if that makes sense. Like some birth control pills, if you do get pregnant, it will like terminate the pregnancy as well, and I didn't want that. And so that was like my big thing. And I had people tell me their different experiences. I had friends that didn't mind being on the pill, it was no problem for them, and then I had people in my life that were like, yeah, it didn't go well for me. But I wanted to really get my own experience, I guess you could say. I just didn't want to take like the worst case scenario and apply it to my life. So that's what I took, like considering all these things. And to be really honest, and this I do regret, I kind of just was overwhelmed to the point of where I was like, you know what, ignorance is bliss. What I mean by that was that I didn't do a ton of research like in depth, right? Because they're so polarizing, it just kind of stressed me out. So I prayed about it, me and Sam prayed about it, and we felt like the best thing was to get on the pill. I originally wanted to get on an IUD, but for multiple reasons I didn't do that. And so I was like, you know what, let's just try it out. I can always get off of it. So when I got on it, I was perfectly fine. Like I had no crazy symptoms. Like people are like, oh my gosh, I went insane. Nothing for me. Like I did feel a little bit more hungry sometimes, but I just knew that was a possibility, so I just fought it. I got on the pill at the very beginning of 2021. I got married in June 2021, so like 6 months in, and it was fine. I didn't consider getting off of it or anything. The thoughts started coming up in October just because I was like, I hate taking a pill every day. I didn't like being bound to this, and it just kind of frustrated me. And then I have kind of opened up a little bit, but I've had a lot of health issues, and so a lot of just issues have been popping up in my life, and it felt like there were a million different variables that could be affecting it. And then a really big thing that I was dealing with was extremely low libido. Now again, been dealing with a lot of health issues, so it makes sense that with those issues I would have low libido. But a side effect of my birth control pill was low libido. So I was like, okay, do I get off of it? Like, what do I do? But I didn't want to necessarily get off of it because I was like, well, then what do we do? We're starting from scratch again. And I just didn't know what to do, and I don't like change. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like keep praying about it. Me and Sam had talked about it, and Sam was like, it's totally up to you, Jaclyn. Like, if you feel like you need to get off of it, then you can get off of it. So I let time go by, still considered it. I kind of talked about it in my previous video, how I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna stay on it. And so then a couple months ago, I went to another doctor to go get like blood work done for some other health stuff. And I was talking about how I'd been having a lot of really bad migraines to the point of where I would throw up and like all this stuff. And I learned that I am not supposed to be on estrogen if I get migraines. I used to get migraines a lot in middle school and high school. It can cause blood clots, it can cause strokes. Like, it's pretty dangerous to be on estrogen while having migraines. So my doctor was like, you need to get off of this pill and get on a different pill like as soon as possible. So at that point I was like, wow, I'd already been considering getting off of it. At this point, do I just get off of it? Because I don't know, I just had a doctor literally tell me you cannot be on an estrogen type of pill. So mine was like a combination pill. So they were like, just get on a progesterone pill, I think is what it's called. But at this point, I was like, you know what? I really feel like I should just get off of it. Like I just have this feeling. So then I started really digging into this more and looking into certain resources, listening to podcasts, and really hearing people's stories, especially in the libido department. A lot of people said that theirs brought on autoimmune diseases. I mean, so many things. And I take everything with a grain of salt. Like, again, just because someone else had that story doesn't mean it's going to be your own. But it really did open up my eyes to going, wow, like, did I not realize in certain ways that this was affecting me? So between my doctor saying you need to get off of this and me already kind of feeling that pull of like, maybe we should try something different, I decided to just get off of it. And it's been about a month now. And I do want to make like a separate video, maybe as like an update to like the differences I see and all of that. I just want to let my body do its natural thing. Like, I don't want any medicine in me that is going to affect my period or even just my hormones, anything like that. I have said this ever since we first got married and became sexually active, that if we have a baby as a surprise, I will be overjoyed. Like, yes, I do have fears of that, which I'll get into in a second, but I know that that is a real risk, so to say, with getting off of birth control, and I'm okay with that. So that's a good transition into my fears. I wanted to talk about this. I'm just being really vulnerable here, but I operate out of fear. I think of worst case scenarios all the time. There's a fear of missing out, or just fear of like someone dying, just so many different things. The reason why I was delaying getting off of it was because of fear. It's mainly because of my health issues. So I really would like to get all my health stuff in order before we have a family, because it's somewhat related. So I really was worried about, like, what if we accidentally got pregnant and I haven't figured all this out, and then we throw my body through a whole loop. Like, it would just be a concern. And so I had all these fears. I was thinking of every little thing, like, and I also didn't really feel very educated on how to have birth control without any extra hormones, like tracking your cycle and all that stuff. And so I really just took it on myself to educate myself. I just got my Bible because as I was wrestling with all of this, I feel like God just really spoke to me through his word, which is what his word is. It's living and breathing, and it's still applicable today. So me and my small group were going through Ruth, and I was, you know, really worried about, like, man, if I got pregnant right now, like, I know the correct answer is, oh, but then that's God's plan. And I believe that. But I have all these fears because of everything I've been going through, and everything my body is going through, and what we're trying to figure out, and just trying to get things in order. So I had all these fears, and my small group was studying Ruth. And if you don't know the story of Ruth, I'm gonna give like a really quick wrap up. So there's a girl named Ruth. She's been married for like 10 years, didn't have any kids. Her husband dies, and there's no like next of kin where she's at. So her and her mother-in-law like go back to where they're from, and essentially her next of kin, they find each other, and it's a beautiful love story, and it's really cool to just see how God like is purposefully orchestrating them to be, you know, married. So at the end in chapter 4, I'm spoiling the story if you've never read it, but you really should. Her and Boaz, who is her next of kin, her kinsman redeemer, they get married, and it says, so Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. And I read that, and I was like, whoa, like, it says the Lord gave her conception, and she was married for 10 years prior and never had a kid. And it's not to say, like, there's so many reasons the other guy could have been barren, whatever it is, but either way, it's so clear that God gave her a child. And I know that, and it's easy to know it, but to read it and feel like God is saying, like, you will have a child when I want you to, whether that's tomorrow or whether that's never, like, it's his plan. And I was like, okay, God, I hear you. And I remember telling Sam, like, I found so much peace in hearing that in God's word. So all that to say, my plan going forward, again, me and Sam are still, like, we're not actively trying to have kids, but I do know our chances are much higher now that I'm not, you know, on a hormone contraceptive. And through this process, I've been researching a ton on, like, you know, post-pill diets and all this stuff. And I have learned so much. And this is like the first time I've really felt motivated to take care of my body for its well-being. And meaning, like, what I put in it. You guys know I love my sweets, I love my sugars, I mean, we just made cookies together, right? Like, I don't like diets, I don't like being restricted, but I don't feel restricted. Through this process, it's almost like I'm finding freedom in food, like how it can make me feel better, and how I can help my body recover from, you know, having all these hormones and now having none, and, like, you know, going through a roller coaster. And so I just want to bring you guys along on this journey with me. Again, I'm not saying that you need to get off of it right now. Like, that is totally up to you, your conviction on that. But I wanted to share my story because I wish I would have known, like, if you get migraines, and not like people are like, oh, I have a migraine and it's a headache. Like, there's a very specific thing with migraines that you have, like, I think they're called legions is what they told me, where you can start seeing things. And for me, if I don't get medicine in me, I will throw up. It's very much a very specific thing. So if you do get migraines, like, that's something to consider. If you're, like, on a mixed pill, I would ask your doctor, because I didn't know that, and it could have been really bad. I was on the pill for 1.5 years, and thankfully I didn't have a stroke, but there's a possibility with that. I just kind of want to share this with you guys and really practice being more vulnerable, because there's going to be a lot of changes in my diet and, you know, and things that I do. And now I'm able to kind of talk about this with you guys and walk through it as I'm going through it. Like, I've only been off of it for a month, which is not a long time, and I've already seen improvements on my libido, which feels funny to talk about, but I mean, very different. And so I'm curious to see how I'll keep changing, and, you know, how it was affecting me in ways I didn't realize it. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time just spending the day with you, spending quality time with you. I love doing life with you guys, and I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.